Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Fine, thanks. How about yourself? You're doing good. I'm sorry. I'm so frazzled right now. I'm teaching class and got my mind on this. So anyhow, and I've got Dr. Williams actually taking her CCMA right now. So anyhow,
Oh, so
um,
your
so
hands are full.
yeah, she's going to be the instructor that would be in the classroom with these students in the boot camp. But
Okay,
anyhow, yeah, so they wanted her to have the certification before she taught it.
makes
Um,
sense.
so, and of course, yeah, I agree. The only problem was the time constraints, and even though we are instructors and use this information on a regular basis, there's still, when you're sitting there for a certification exam, there's a lot of study effort involved in that. So we've been
Oh,
on
totally.
a very, very tight time constraint, to say the least.
I when I got the email, I read through kind of what you guys were doing and the guaranteed 100% pass rate, kind of like the boot camp style, and maybe not everyone is super tech savvy and like how fast you're getting up and running. I was like, oh man,
Oh,
that's quite the undertaking.
yeah, Rhonna. I mean, I've been like I'm stacked this term. I've got day class and night class, and so I'm,
Oh,
getting home at almost 11, and then working on making that class as strong as possible till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, then getting up and doing it again, and so on. So I mean, yeah, it's been a tremendous undertaking, and of course, weekends don't exist either because I've been working on it, combing through all the resources on McGraw Hill to make sure that I'm not giving them too much information, and they
sure.
get overloaded. And then at the same time, I've got to make sure that they still have the relevant information to be able to pass the certification exam. So, what I really need out of you, though, is I really appreciated that webinar where you talked about teaching or excuse me, MedTerm online and having, I think you had said at one point, 7 sections with over 100 students per section.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, gosh, if anybody knows how to get every little bit, every little nuance out of those analytics to make sure that nobody gets left behind, it's got to be you. So if I can get any kind of insight as to, where we're looking at probably, I haven't got the official results yet, but I heard an estimate of 23 students in one class and
Okay.
13 in another. So
Okay.
those numbers aren't overwhelming, but at the same time, they're not the official numbers, and that's
Sure.
considerably lower than what I heard before. And everything's been such a fluid environment. I'm afraid I'm going to go, get the final results on say Monday or something. It's going to be like
Yeah.
25 and 25 or something crazy.
Oh, totally. And it's is it 5 or 6 weeks?
Well, it's 6, but it's the
Okay.
first 5 weeks will be boot camp, and then that last class is to take the CCMA. But I said if we have to, we could review all morning and take the CCMA that afternoon or whatever we needed to do if we have students that really need remediation. So we're hoping that everybody's good to go and we come in early that day for the CCMA and knock it out, and everybody's out there by 11 o'clock or something. But anyhow, that it's we're planning on 5 classes of being intensive training, 4 hours per class, so 20 intensive hours.
Okay. All right. And then and I'm asking these questions because it'll kind of help me direct you because I mean I can show you everything, but it would be nice if I could give you like very pointed, let's do this
Okay.
type stuff. Um, that way I can give you pointed information and then also give you like more broad information
Please.
because
Thank you.
you can give there's 100 reports you could run, right? I don't
Right.
know if they're all helpful to you though.
Right.
And then are you using like Zones Accelerated? What textbook are you using?
Oh, we are using the certification review book
Okay.
through McGraw Hill, of course. It's Moini, and I've always regarded that book as the resource to make somebody a better medical assistant that's getting ready to go out into the field.
Okay.
But in this example, this boot camp, I should say, it's really not the best textbook for the process that we've got to go through. We incorporate it on campus because I'm also incorporating hands-on skills and so on and so forth. And essentially, for this boot camp, what I really needed was just a straight roadmap to pass an exam, which you never teach to the exam, but
But in
essentially
this
that's
case,
what I needed. So
yeah.
anyhow, I've tried to groom what resources we have in Moini to just be a roadmap to success, and that's what I'm worried about.
So, just so you know, actually, can you see my screen?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, good. Um, this may not be something to worry about right now because you need to launch. You're launching Monday, aren't you?
It's next week. I think orientation is like Tuesday. The first class is Wednesday, and then the next one's Saturday. So,
Judging how this one goes,
mhm.
you can also pull from any textbook in McGraw Hill.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
You
you're
can.
right.
So if you go to the add assignment, you could pull from Jones, you could pull from Allen, and you could pull from their accelerated versions because both of them have an accelerated.
Hmm.
And then if you felt like, okay, well, this is very pointed, but I needed more in the midterm area,
Hmm.
pull from the midterm.
Well,
And if when you get there, I can also help you do that.
yeah, yeah. The NHA, the National Health Career Association, makes no bones about it. They have 2,400 employee partners that they get information from. They get feedback from as to what these partners really need on these certification exams to make sure that the people earning them are going to fit their needs. And they definitely have said medical terminology is a weakness, but the thing of it is, though, it is not straight just anterior,
Right.
dorsal. What it is it's medical terminology embedded in like a pathophysiology type concept, if you can understand what I'm saying. So it's like a reading problem that incorporates both med-term and patho. So it's not just straight, the femur bone is the bone of the upper leg, and stuff like that. So that's
Kind of
where
more
it's,
case study based.
yes.
Okay. Because that's good to know. So as you get farther, we can pull if you want to.
Hmm.
I don't want to complicate it now.
And that's just it. I'm not sure where we're going to stand. We don't really know what we're up against. They're not. I wanted to have them make sure that they took some sort of a baseline exam before they even came to the actual class, so we could have some standing of where they are. And they're like, no, we're not going to be able to do that. So our first class, we're making them take a practice exam right off the bat just to get a status quo reading
Right.
on them. Because if they're so far down, we might have to even scale it back even more, or we'll blow them out of the water. So, like I said, I just don't know where we're going to stand.
Sure. Well, just know, like once you kind of you're like, okay, we ran it, we did it, we problem shooted the whole time, or even halfway through. If you and you don't want to take 20 hours to figure out where do I pull that from, we can always meet again, and I'll be like, we're going to pull from here, here, and here. And
Okay.
I'll just help
Okay. Thank
fast.
you. Thank you.
So as far as the prep exam and as far as the exams go, or any like quizzing that's going to occur in the class, is that going to happen in Connect?
Yes. What we're going to have them do are the Learn Smarts and
Okay.
reviews in Connect, and they're going to have access to 9 practice exams that they can take unlimited amount of times. All the resources are going to be unlimited times, but we're going to
Okay.
test them under timed conditions, just like the NHA will test them when it's time to take the exam 3 different times in class. But we didn't want to use a whole lot of class time to test them. But we also know when they're taking those tests at home, they're not going to be under that kind of intense time constraint. The kids are going to come calling, the phone's going to ring, and so on. But we needed to see how they were going to hold up under pressure. So again, 3 tests in class, and then everything else we're hoping gets covered outside of class. And then, for lack of a better way to put it, we flip the classroom, and the flipping in class is just going over areas of weakness.
Okay. So then maybe starting there, do you have specific, so when you set up your schedule,
Mm-hmm.
Your Learn Smarts, are they due prior to them arriving to class?
Yes, yes.
Did you build in enough time to base what will occur in class off the Learn Smart?
I built time into the class.
Okay.
Um,
But you could kind of, because one of the, so I'll take you right here. one of the, and what I'm going to do in this situation, this is not what I typically do, but
No,
as
this
we're,
is not typical teaching at all. You're exactly right.
well, I'm more meant, you've signed FERPA, I've signed FERPA. I'm going to, some of this, I have to just take you live to actually
Oh, I
show you,
see. Yeah.
which might end up exposing someone, but we've both
Oh,
agreed
yeah.
that,
Trust me, I've signed my life away. Yep.
right. When you're a professor, you completely sign your life away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to view all reports. Oh yeah. Okay. So under here, under view all reports, we're going to go to the Learn Smart. I think this is actually going to be really important to you. There are one of the main ones I think you'll probably want to look at is missed questions.
Oh, I'm not seeing anything right now.
You're not seeing anything. Yeah, it looks like something. So you're not seeing my screen at all?
I just see RK. That's all I've seen thus far.
Oh, okay, let me see. The first, you know, you want to love the fact that the WebEx actually updated. So I'm like, well, you can't update when I'm like, don't understand how to deal with the update.
Right, right.
Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. So I want. Okay, do you see a connect screen now?
No, I sure don't.
Okay, you still see. Let me try this. Do you see something now?
All I see is the RK. Is that something on our end then?
Are you serious? You see RK? Let me see. Because it is telling me. Okay, come on. I want to share my content. Okay. Not my.
Now we got it. Now we got it.
Okay, so I'm going to go back. So we're in a live course. So one of the things that I think will work really well for you, and this is to prevent risk, is go to all reports. You're going to come down here and you're going to go to Learn Smart. And then in here, there are a few things that are going to be pretty important. Thank you, honey. That are going to be pretty important to you. Most challenging learning objectives and missed questions.
Right.
And so I think here will help you focus your time a little bit when you have them in class and they've already completed that Learn Smart. So for example, if you're in chapter 2, you can kind of see here this in my personal class, and you can download it as an Excel sheet too if you need to. These were the most missed areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that will really help you too, because that means that students either weren't getting it or they were trying to breeze through it too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can refocus them when you get to class and spend some time on that. Usually if I'm doing a mixed style section like that, where I'm going to actually physically see them, this is usually where I'll bring in, and this actually might be helpful to you, like some case study work to bring home the concept, because since that's how they'll see it in the testing, but then that's also how they'll remember it versus like just so solidly lecture.
Right, right.
The other one I think that would be really valuable to you is the missed questions. So this will load, if I go to that same one, this tells you how often these questions were missed. So obviously this one right here, understanding documentation, was really missed. It was missed 83 times.
Right.
In this course. And so I think these are two that I primarily use with Learn Smarts, just because they you can get a lot more information than this, but this is actually more guided information, which helps me. Do you have an orientation built into your into the course where students learn how to use their own reports?
Well, we do have the very first night that we get everybody, they are going to have an intensive orientation on how to use the tablet. We are issuing, all of our students get a tablet, so we are issuing all of them tablets. and they're going to get issued oriented on how to, go to Canvas and then go to Connect. We've simplified Canvas to where there's only 3 buttons on it now. Essentially, you click on Canvas, and then you've got a button that takes you to PowerPoints for each chapter, a button that takes you to the McGraw-Hill Connect exercises, and then a button that takes you back to Canvas. So we've tried to simplify all that, and then after they get oriented on just Canvas and how to get to the McGraw-Hill and everything, there's supposed to be orientation on how to actually use the McGraw-Hill resources, how to use their own reports and stuff. But when we were talking with Amy Ensign earlier in the week, she was telling us, you probably want to lean back on, hey, go to your own reports, probably every class. And I took that into my notes as, yeah, you're exactly right. So you get an 88%, that's all well and good. But if you keep missing the same stuff over and over and over, what if the test is loaded up with that stuff that's burying you every time? So, yeah. So anyhow, that was a very, very good point. She definitely brought us, some things that I wrote down, opened up our eyes.
You could even make that an assignment worth points, or make it some extra credit, like bring me a copy.
Right. There won't be any grades really associated with it. Essentially, it's all or nothing. You pass your CCMA and that's it. We do have to give them attendance data, but we were talking with Amy, and Dr. Williams and I have talked it over ourselves. We're going to have files on each one of these students and put their reports in there about how much time has been spent and all of this kind of stuff, because if somebody doesn't pass, and heaven forbid they've told us, oh, it's 100% pass rate, then I want to make sure we've got tons of ammunition to back up that we did everything possible on our end.
Totally. Okay. So the next thing I would say is one of the ones that I use the most is the at-risk report. So you can kind of, so this class is a fully online class.
Mm-hmm.
And we're a Carnegie Credit institution, so they need to be in here 6 to 9 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So part of being able to use this report well is knowing exactly kind of what should be expected.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll kind of have to maybe in week one sit back and say, okay, what is that outside engagement? What should it look like? If I've set up, this type of quizzing and these type of practices, I have an expectation, along with the Learn Smart one, because you set the time for that as well, that they're spending about this amount of time. And so this is going to be a little bit of a trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
But it will help you in the sense of looking for outliers. Like, for example, so we're almost done with our semester. So like a lot of these students are actually non-attenders anymore,
mm-hmm.
right? But it helps you see things that are not correct. Like I have a 3.9 here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not good
mm-hmm.
in a 6 to 9 hour course. Is this really failing though? So my guess is something has happened with this student versus something has not been happening the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So you can kind of see, as I'll keep going, obviously I've got a lot of students in here.
Right.
But you can kind of see here, these are the students who are now, we're getting a little bit closer to Carnegie Credit. And so there are 2 things that you can do with this. To make it simple, you could check it often and email students who even fall into this category.
Right.
Quickly.
Yeah. Dr. Williams.
And just say, hey, your online engagement is looking about this.
Right.
For to guarantee you're going to pass this exam, I'd like to see your online engagement like this.
Right. Right.
What can we do to make that happen? Right?
Yeah.
Because you want to catch them, you don't even want them in the red.
Yeah, and that
I'm going to let students more go into the red to some degree because I'm gonna reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
But these are going to be doctors and nurses, and if they don't want to make their way into the green, then they're telling me they're going to weed themselves out
Right.
of the medical program
Right.
before they even get into the application process.
Well, we definitely
So
talked about leaning on this
that
report
would
probably
be
on a daily basis,
the other
just
thing
just
that
to
I
get a
use
good
quite a
glance
bit.
at it.
I
Yeah.
would use it differently in your situation than the way I use it, but that would be what I would suggest.
Okay.
The other nice thing is too, you can also send them a lot of reassurance, right? So, you know, obviously most of these students are in the green, and they're right where we would, and then through a little bit of practice, they're right where I expect them to be, right? Here, hold on one sec, Carrie. The car keys actually might be in the car. All of my children decided they did not want to ride the bus this morning. I was like, you're supposed to be on the bus at 8:25, hence me getting on the computer at 8:30. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, sure can.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
I don't hear you anymore.
Uh-oh. How about now? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me now?
Okay. Here, I'm gonna, if you can hear me, see if you can log off and log back on again.
Okay.
You are?
Okay.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, good. Okay.
I know, I was like,
well, we're supposed to get some crazy storms here in a bit, so I don't know if that's maybe what happened or what, but anyhow.
Okay. Could you hear me?
Yeah, I sure could.
Okay. Do you have questions on this particular report?
No, I want to lean heavily on that probably every day just to see where their engagement is.
So the other thing that I would suggest you do, you know, in Canvas, so I use Blackboard, but Canvas and Blackboard are the most similar MLSs in the sense of the amount that they can do.
Right.
The other thing that I do, and I'll just show you in Blackboard really fast, because I know you can do this too, is I color code Blackboard. So I have, you see?
Yeah.
Anytime a student falls, since I'm in both places, and sometimes it's nice for me to see it in two areas. Anytime a student falls below a C in my class, since I use points, and I'm sure you're probably going to end up using points in some fashion just to give you feedback.
Right.
I get that this is below a 70%.
Got it. No, that's a great idea.
That's kind of my other thing that I use. And then I'm pretty sure Canvas can do this too.
It can.
You can, well, I know you can color code, but I'm not sure if you can change the way you ascend. I think you can. So like, for example, if I change the way I ascend, I start with my Fs. Now this is their current weighted grade, but I can do this with any assignment. So if I want to look at a specific assignment and see if students did not do well, like on exam 1, I can sort by ascend, and then I have students who didn't take it, right? And these students are pretty much non-participators, right? February 13th. But then I go into, okay, now these are all my students that were above a 70%.
No, I like that idea. That's a great idea. That way, because they will have their grade book on Canvas. So yeah, let's use all resources possible. No, that's a great idea.
Yeah, no, I really like that. Bye, baby. I have 7-year-old twins, and they're very huggy, which is good.
Nothing wrong with that.
They're I told them, I was like, well, you can give me a hug if you, because they were supposed to be. Okay, so let's look here. So the next thing I would look at is category analysis. So I'm assuming with your exam, you have, like I have like a PLA exam, that you have this broken out in into learning outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the other thing I'd be looking at. It would be a way for you to address the class as a whole, though. It won't give you a specific student. So if you, so coloring gradebook, and I'll show you how to look at specific students too, but doing stuff like that will help you in the small stuff, but this will help you by selecting maybe a specific learning outcome and saying, okay, well, how are our students doing in their progression as a whole?
Got it. Yeah.
Guess is, now this is set up for Jones, but it's got all the assignments in there. So you can look at a specific assignment and see how that's going. And so my guess is that in yours, you can do this one of 2 days. You can do category analysis. You can also do item analysis, which would allow you to do the same thing like select, but then it'll tell you a little bit about that item. So here are the learning outcomes associated, the types of questions that I asked.
Right, right. Yeah, I was just using that this morning in the class I was teaching.
Perfect. The other thing that might be the case with your textbook is, I'm going to go into a different course to show you something that I think my guess is the type of textbook that you're using will do a little something like this. When you're building what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, we had that set up.
Using over here on the tags.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have, so we have learning objectives, which will come with every chapter, but there's a very good chance that you have, you have a topic.
Yes, right, yes. I groomed all of the assignments to closely mimic the CCMA. They give us a breakdown. I can't think what the heck that is off the top of my head, but the map or whatever you want to call it for the test in terms of, you know, percentage of this type of question, percentage of that type of question, covering this section, this information, and so on. So I've tried to groom everything, all the assignments according to the weight per the course, whatever you call that, walk. Anyhow.
Right.
Engagement.
Perfect. Because the other thing, you might, I don't know if it shows in this, but one of the things that we do in this, so I can select in the test bank, it doesn't show up in questions, that we have this other, and these are R specific. So you probably have some very test specific ones in here too that you can run for. So you can see it says CWI because this is a specific style tagged course. And so this will become helpful in that process.
Got it.
But yours will have the same thing.
Okay, I've never used that before. I've used the blooms and the ABHES especially and so on.
Well, that would be something that would be an add-on. For nutrition. It's valuable, but you see, but your textbook is specific to an exam.
Right.
So where I had to create specificity, you already have specificity.
Okay, got it. Got it.
So, go back to Jones. Okay, so those two reports, you can look at. Now, you don't have that many right now, 23 and 13.
Right.
The other thing you can do is insight. So this gets less great the more students you have, and you're about to see why. But if you don't have too many students, this can actually be helpful. Okay, so this class is, we have 152 people in here, and this gives you a sense of where how many students live where and how well they're doing, and you can take a deeper dive. So this is why this is messy if there's a lot of students.
Right.
If there's 23 students, it's not messy because what it does is it just lets you look at outliers.
Right. And so I remember Dr. Hoover bringing this up in Baltimore, and then in another webinar, I remember him bringing it up. But I'd forgotten about this, to be honest with you.
Well, it's kind of one of those things. It's useful until it's not useful. So again, you can see this is kind of be useful to me, but it's going to be hard for me to narrow like this.
Right.
It's really narrow down into somebody.
Right.
Because there's 150 people.
Right.
That being said, 25 people, much simpler.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
all you do is click on this button.
Yep. Daggone it, I forgot all about this. I'm so glad you brought this up.
And it really shows you. Okay, so something's a little funky here. She has an average of a B, but she's spending so far on average 128 hours. Now this is telling me a couple of different things. She's probably leaving Connect open, things like that. But the really more important thing is, how long does she spend on the assignments I've given her?
Right.
And when does she log into them? So I can show you where I can now go look for more specific information on this. But and for example, I happen to know this is a foreign student. So she spends significantly more time because English is her second language.
Sure.
But for like right here, it tells me a lot. So I can kind of look and say, okay, I happen to know this student, right? He does his homework about 11 days before they're due. He's an average of an A. That's kind of what I would be expecting to see up here. So it's just a quick dive to look at outliers. And then at that point, you can look at it a different way. You can look at time spent. So that's helpful too. All of these students aren't doing as well.
Right.
But then at that point, you can write that student's name down if you want. And then you can go right here. Now if I type in Kyle, okay, we're just looking at him. Now I can see everything he does. I can see when he does it. I can see how long he spends on it. And this is how I can problem solve him.
Yeah.
So obviously Kyle doesn't need much problem solving. He's clearly a really strong student. He's what I would expect in most of my medical terminology students, right? 70% of them they want a 99% because they go to the program.
Right.
And then I have the other chunk who are like, wow, I didn't realize this was science.
Yeah.
And so, but this tells a lot, right? Like, are they taking multiple attempts? So like you were saying, they have multiple attempts. Do they actually utilize them?
Right.
When are they doing their work? So that's another thing that tends to be key with successful versus the unsuccessful. In this class, they have 2 due dates. So are they logging in at 10 on Wednesday and at 10 on Sunday and spending the last 2 hours of those evenings completing their work? So you and I both know you don't study this
2
days a week. You're not going to pass.
Right.
You need to study this a couple days a week. You need to be working throughout.
Well, these people's jobs are on the line. I'm hoping that alone is enough motivation. I'm hoping that some of them are not packing it in already, though, and they're just showing up. Maybe I don't even know why they would show up if they are packing it in, but regardless, I'm hoping that they're motivated to be engaged throughout the week, a little bit every day, so to say.
Totally. But we also have students who think that, well, they should just know it.
Right. I'm afraid we're going to run into that because they've been in the field a long time, some of them, and I'm afraid they're going to have that mentality. You're exactly right.
But that's the 2 ways that you can use those to get you that broad view that you're looking for, so you can identify some issues without digging through each student. And then here's how you would do the dig.
No, that's great. I'd forgotten about going with that insight report. And that really will help. Yeah, we didn't mention that the other day with Amy, so I had forgotten about that. But as soon as you brought it up, I remember Dr. Hoover bringing it up.
Yeah, it definitely helps. And you'll also see, and the more because you're going to do a lot of these, aren't you?
A lot of boot camps?
Yeah.
Well, no, not exactly.
Okay.
We're doing the one, and supposedly, that's it. But we are supposed to be the pilot and roll it out to other ECPI campuses where there's a Bon Secours hospital system close. And so we're supposed to, build the product that helps everybody else that's been given the same task. The only problem is that got changed too, because we were supposed to do it, have our boot camp, and then pass the product onto our Virginia Beach campus, and now they're rolling out Virginia Beach 1 week after they start ours. So I've already built the product and everything and handed it to them, but it's not been field tested or anything like that. So yeah.
Ooh, trial by fire.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That sounds like academia.
Ha 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 ha. Well, it does, but in academia, nobody has enough. Nobody would ever go out on a limb and say, "Oh, 100% pass rate," you know. So, anyhow,
Oh,
yeah, and that kind of worries me too. You know, that kind of worries me too. Are they saying wink, 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 wink? But this is a third party, verifier. It's not like this is something that ECPI is making up, to test these people on. So there's no way, there's no wink, wink, nod, nod on any of this. So anyway, and that wasn't supposedly our side saying 100% pass rate. Supposedly that was the hospital system, but apparently our administration went along with it. So, and I'm sure they'll take all the credit and throw me under the bus if it doesn't go. If it goes successfully, they'll take the credit. If it doesn't, then it'll be me. So
that's academia.
yeah, there you go. You're exactly right about that.
I think you can. So I think the reports that we talked about, these are your primary as far as like using reports to having students coming up with a mechanism
Right.
to demand their use of reports,
Right.
things like that. And then the item analysis and the category analysis to see holistically how the course is doing. The at-risk, and then the insight to keep an eye on the individual students, and then color-coding gradebook.
Yeah, agreed. That you've given me some things that we had not yet discussed that I think will be key. Hey, while I'm thinking of it, is there a McGraw-Hill video that the students could access that would show them how to access their reports? Because I will, make sure that they know how to do it. But again, they may all freeze up like deer in the headlights when the pressure starts mounting and not do it or not remember how to do it later. So
right when you go into add assignment, you should have a connect orientation in there, and I actually helped do some of this orientation. So it will have them as technologically capable to handle their textbook, because there's little things like it's Flash based, and so sometimes Flash doesn't work really well with Chrome because Chrome doesn't really, Flash is a little outdated, things like that. And so it goes through to make sure your computer's all set up, but then B, how to do all that stuff.
Okay, good.
So you should see this.
Okay, yeah.
It gets loaded into, because it even shows up when I teach
Right.
things that are not
Right.
midterm.
Because I was thinking that might not be a bad thing if I have to make my own video to make it. But if they already have something made with the teaching load that I've got, plus the extra effort of doing all this, I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel.
Totally. No, that's right there. So that will help you. And also, if you're having them do any audio recording or any pronunciation outside of class,
Then we're
that'll
not doing any of
help
that.
their
Okay.
They'll help them sub their microwave.
Ha
I know. I'm like, maybe I should have drank more coffee. They'll help them set up their microphone. So,
I don't think I've got really anything else. I mean, no, you really gave me some great insight. Can you think of anything else that would be really imperative?
I definitely gave you what I thought was imperative.
Yeah.
Actually, because last night I kind of laid in bed. I'm like thinking, I was like, if I was in his shoes, what would I consider non-negotiable as far as what I did? Because you can do a million things.
Right. That's exactly it. But I've got other obligations and everything else. So you're exactly right.
What would be a non-negotiable being put in the situation of 100% pass rate and, basically testing what I was doing? This is exactly what I would do.
Okay. Well, you just made my stress level decrease exponentially. Haven't heard that, because you thought of it in the exact same terms that I thought of it. That what is non-negotiable? Where do we have to look that is non-negotiable that we can catch the very most people who are struggling and still have enough time, that is, to get them up to hopefully a passing level. Right.
As you're going though, if you need anything, or if you're like, well, what about this? I know that I actually suggested two. I don't know if they'll release it. So I just did a WebEx on actually teaching people how to use reports. But what it was training people like me on how to do it.
Okay.
It wasn't training. It was training like digital faculty consultants.
Right.
So it didn't go out to all people. But and sometimes at McGraw Hill, like different people work under different books, and so there's specific books I really work with a lot.
Right.
And so I reminded them of that one too, that you might find that valuable, because it kind of, I go through probably in more detail some of these reports. And so hopefully that can be sent to you too. But as you're going, you feel free to email me.
Okay, thank you.
Because we can always just also jump on the computer really fast. Because you could even share, like in the end, you could share your course with me. And then you can be like, I'm here, can't figure this. And I can go in and see if I can figure it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
The best way to, because I'm also showing you out of a different textbook, which is a different structure than your book. Which sometimes, every single book, even within Connect, has a slightly different feel. Like nutrition is completely different than Metro. So I don't know how different your book is, so I'm not as familiar with it.
Right, sure. Hey, let me just run one last thing past you.
Definitely.
So essentially we have 5 classes with them, and what I did was the order of chapters in Moini, I completely shook it up. And what I did was I weighted it in the front with the material that gets covered the most on the certification exam. When I got that breakdown of, what areas have the most weight and so on, I front loaded that into the first 2 classes that they will have. And by the time we get to the 3rd class, about midway through the 3rd class, we've pretty much hit the concepts that are going to be weighted the most. And so essentially we would have 2.5 weeks at that point to really remediate, and especially remediate the stuff that carries the most weight. Like if there's a section that only has 3 questions on it, so to say, is only 2% of the test value, I'm not going to spend any time on that. But patho looks to me like it's going to be a quarter of the exam, and that's like the first chapter that I'm kicking off with. So you agree that's probably a very wise thing to do, is front load it while they're fresh, while they're motivated, while they're strong. They build up hopefully foundation knowledge, of that material, and then we can taper it appropriately, and then review all their weaknesses at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because these aren't novice students,
right?
I mean, there's no chance that they are like, wow, I don't even know the organ systems. Like, even if they may not know them to the detail, because they're medical assisting, and they've and they've been in field, so they haven't been practicing, which we use what we don't use.
Right.
But it shouldn't blow their mind, right?
Right.
They should start feeling. Then I think that's fine.
Right. Okay. Good. Sounds good. All right. Well, I just wanted. I mean, everybody has thought that was a good idea. Our campus president was campus president over the other ECPI across town. In Richmond, Virginia, there are 2 ECPI campuses, and the other campus did a boot camp for another organization, a much smaller organization, still substantial, but it was a private practice, OBGYN practice. Anyway, but they needed a boot camp for certification as well, and she was over on their campus, and of course they were the tip of the spear, and I didn't have anything to do with that. But she wanted that course shared with me to take ideas from it, and to be quite honest with you, from looking at it, I don't know how anybody passed it, because she laid it out just like we were basically doing the same, what we call a certification review class that we have on our campus, but we know we've been teaching these students for 15 intensive months at this point, and when they get to the end of the program, we have a pretty good idea of where they stand. And she just went straight through it, cookie cutter approach, like I would if I was teaching, that class to our medical students that we had trained personally. So anyhow, somehow or another, they still were successful. I don't know what magic wand she has, and I'm sure I won't get it shared with me, but regardless, to me, it didn't make sense to lay it out like that at all. To me, it made sense to lay it out where most of the value is concentrated.
Well, and that makes sense to me too, because you're also conditioning a way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so if for the most part, because of their profession and because of that certification exam, you want them kind of thinking from that patho perspective.
True.
You then basing the course kind of saying, okay, we're going to focus here and we're going to expand out on this and we're going to review this and we're going to, we'll pick up little pieces.
Right.
But that's kind of the perspective that we're taking.
Right.
I think that's, it's not a necessarily like a pharmacological perspective or something like that.
Right.
So that would make sense to me.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate that, because that too helps ease my mind that yet another SME, thinks that the way I'm approaching this course, makes sense.
Yeah. No, definitely.
And, I do not doubt, I've been teaching these review type classes and stuff for a long time now. I've been in the medical assisting field for 12 plus years, and I've been, in the clinic. I was the cardiopulmonary rehabilitation director at a big hospital chain here in the area and stuff too. So I've always worn two hats, full-time clinician and full-time instructor. But this was just such a short time frame and everything else that it definitely leads me to doubt myself, and any assurance is definitely appreciated.
Sure. No, I totally understand. And having been in the position where you're the one making the decision and a lot is riding on.
Yes.
Because I had to when because I used to run the department, and this class particularly was not going that well. Because it had no oversight, because I had all part-time faculty teaching it. It's a high demand course, and it was one of many, many courses, and I had one full-time faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's also and this was quite a while ago, I'm an exercise scientist by trade.
Oh, me too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Undergrad, ex-phys in biology, and then grad ex-phys. Wow.
So I actually was psychology and ex-phys, and then in grad it was ex-phys, and then I emphasized in behavior, and then did a lot of certifications to like ACSM and things like that. So it's like, okay, well, if we're talking sport injury, got it. But what do I know about the urinary system, particularly outside of like A&P? And so I had to like sit back and actually become an expert in the areas I was weak in, and then say, yeah, but this is the way this class should be taught.
Right.
So I did something different than my institution had ever seen before. And so I even had to get the president's permission to run a course the way I run courses.
Wow. So
I'm with you on and if this is going down, it's going to look great for everybody when they talk about, student success and saving money and all of that stuff. It's going to look really bad if it doesn't go well.
Exactly. Exactly. And the heck of it is I'm not getting to even teach it. They, and I haven't exactly found the root as to why they did not want me to teach the course. It may be because I have so many other, as a program director, I have so many other obligations and such. But nevertheless, I've got to coach Dr. Williams up and make sure that she has the same confidence in the product that I've created, so she can go in there and confidently, believe that this is going to be the roadmap to success. And so anyhow, and she's pretty well a fried wire right now too. So she's taking her CCMA right now as we speak, and then she's got to reboot and be ready next week to go in there and teach a course that, and she hasn't even taught our certification course here at the university yet. So she's, very, very strong clinician and a great instructor, but, again, she has not been field tested in this class, so that's yet something else against us.
Well, at least the nice thing is that she's taking the exam right now,
Right.
so she'll have at least some of that
Yes.
perspective, which will
Yes.
help, I
And I
imagine.
told her take copious notes as soon as you get done. And this is what I've done with these certifications. I get in my car and I just sit there and leave myself the longest voicemail ever, and just everything that pops into my head, I just record it on my phone.
Totally. And you'll be enrolled in her class. Will you be enrolled in her
Correct.
class?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
She may be teaching it, but they made it
You're both.
100% certain. We both had to be evaluating the class and looking over each other's shoulders to make sure nothing gets left behind. And I'm
Right.
on the sidelines to some extent, but if there's students who need tutoring and so on and so forth, then that's where I've got to make time to do the tutoring and so on. So, and which is fine. I mean, I'll figure out a way to do it, because it has to be done.
Right. Oh, I was going to tell you, this is not in Connect, but if you're looking for some in-class activities,
Hmm.
um, go to go into Jones and go into Allen, and they would just be case study style.
Hmm.
But you should look, you can add any book you want to your key, just so you know. So like
Right, you
like the
told me that, and I hadn't even thought about that. That makes perfect sense.
so you just add a course,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'll have access to. You can see I have a million books in here.
Right.
Um, but when you do that, you go up to library,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have access to the instructor resources.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know, for example, Jones has, um, in the instructor manual for every chapter, so you could kind of say, okay, well, what chapters are more struggling for students than other chapters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, actually, two's not going to have five. Here you can pull out. Let me pull it over for you. There are group work that asks you read about a patient, just like they would read like soap notes, like they would
Right,
be kind of,
right, right. Yeah.
and then questions that follow that. Great group work.
Okay.
If you're kind of also thinking about like, well, how do I really kind of work with them? Because the other problem is, it sounds like they're in class a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge in and of itself.
Right, right.
How to keep their brain firing
Yeah. Well, that's just it. The
and
evening
how to
class will
sleep.
have worked all day and then come to class
Yeah.
in the evening, and then of course the group that meets on Saturday will have worked all week and come in on a Saturday. So I mean, granted, they've had a little bit of time. They'd have gone home Friday and slept and so on and so forth, but nevertheless, they may be frayed from a hard week of work too, and their job being on the line. So yeah.
Oh, you know what else is another? Let me. This you will really like this. I think. I don't have it. You're just gonna go through Dropbox with me,
Okay.
because I wasn't necessarily thinking about showing this to you, but I will show it to you now, because I proofed it. I haven't actually seen it in this is in Jones Accelerated, and
Okay.
it's in the instructor manual in Jones Accelerated, but it's very cool, and I would if I taught in person, this is something that I would definitely do. Look at this completed one here. There's games in here. There's all kinds of stuff, but that's not what I'm looking for. But there are these. Okay, I'm gonna have to find it. I haven't been in here in a little while.
Hey, where'd you get your undergrad and grad?
So I went to UCSB for
Okay.
my undergrad, and then I went to Boise State for grad.
Oh, okay. I knew
Yeah.
they had a
So
good
I
program.
they so I loved the UC system.
Mm-hmm.
Did not love the cost in California.
Ha 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 ha.
I went to school, on the beach or whatever.
Right.
Went to great, and I got grants and scholarships to a couple of schools in California. But it was like I was an older student,
Mm-hmm.
and I was married, and was like, well, we can't buy a house. Like we can't. We want to. I was an ultra runner
Mm-hmm.
then, and we wanted to live where there was good sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mountain biking,
Mm-hmm.
running, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like we gotta go.
Ha 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 ha.
mean, spend $1 million for a condo.
Oh Lord,
You're never gonna get ahead. You're never gonna have kids. You're never gonna.
no.
So, where'd you go?
I'm from West Virginia originally. A small West Virginia school called West Liberty University. They were NAIA. Now they're Division II NCAA. So we had like
Okay.
2,500
Yeah.
students, but it was an excellent program. Biology and ex-phys was tremendous. Matter of fact, it was much higher ranked than like WVU and Marshall. And then for grad, I went to University of Louisville.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, no complaints about my education. Matter of fact, I mean, I'm still living off of it, so to say. I mean, I've never had to go back and revisit that part of my educational process.
No. Yeah, I was actually surprised. So because I met with because my primary degree was experimental psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did a minor in exercise science because the UC that I went to, one of their prestigious programs was the psych program. It wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't even have a 4-year degree in exercise science or anything related.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could have been straight A&P, which
Mm-hmm.
was not as interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
But so I was trying to figure out for graduate school and knowing I could do sports psych, but I needed to move into like the exercise science realm.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my advisor was like, "Have you ever looked at Boise State?" And I'm like, "I don't even know where Boise is." Right? And I was like, and it was all, and then, come on, it was like Boise, like a state school, really?
Right,
Like,
right,
and actually the program was super awesome.
right.
I enjoyed every minute of it and learned and got a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Since then gone on and taken a couple of doctorate courses, and then I was like, I don't really want to do this.
Yeah, yeah. I kicked that around too, but I was like, you know what? This is where I really want to be. The doctoral degree does not do anything but eat up more of my time and my bank account. So I do not
Right.
need that. So
I'm with you.
I'm just going to change my first name to Doctor, so it'll be a whole lot easier.
Totally. This is what I wanted to show you. So
Okay.
if you go to the instructor resources in acquiring medical terminology, and it's their accelerated version, you will see these. And there's almost one for every chapter. They're pretty long,
Okay.
but they have to go through and diagnose. So that's group work.
Mm-hmm.
They either have to turn, and probably typically what they do, they have to read novice stuff and turn it into language,
Mm-hmm.
also abbreviations.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to think about kind of what they're reading.
Right, right. Yeah, that might not be a bad thing to do if we start seeing them wear down and we need to break them into some groups or something like that.
Well, again, what you were saying, it's the patho,
Right.
It's reading and it's the understanding.
Right.
Can they read all this and understand what they should be writing as the result of that?
Right.
Like, what is that?
Right.
And so these are really cool. I've used these for group work in a wiki
Mm-hmm.
in Blackboard, because I only teach this online now.
Right.
If I taught in person, I would do these. There's one with every chapter, so that's another thing too. So these are just some ideas for you to sounds like given how they'll be asked these types of questions might be valuable to you.
Yeah, I agree. That wouldn't be bad to have in our hip pocket. I mean, if we need it to unveil it, but if we, I don't know, I'm almost afraid that some of them will have been out in the field and were never formally trained at all, and will have such little foundation knowledge that they've basically just been given the toolbox of immediate skills that they need and nothing else, no rationale as to why they need it or anything. That we might have to coach them up and start at such a basic level that we never even get to this point. I mean, like I said, my fear scale is running wild because I just don't know what we're going to get.
Right. Well, at least I'm just kind of throwing some just extras at you.
Oh, no. I like this. This is something I'd like to use in my own course, my regular courses.
Well, and sometimes if you don't know other textbooks,
right?
Then
of course.
One of the cool things is you have access to a bunch of where you normally don't. They don't ever want to give you access to textbooks.
Right.
Well, McGraw-Hill's not like that, but you don't have time to dig through a million textbooks either.
Right.
I mean, that's just a pain in the ass. So then you're like, well, how do I narrow this search just a little bit? So that's 2 ways to narrow for you.
Yeah. Well, Rhonna, I'm going to have to wrap up because I got to get back to the class that I'm teaching. I gave them an assignment, and I told them I'd be out in an hour, and we'd go over it. But thank you so much. You've given me a lot of relief in a lot of ways, areas that I can, well, for lack of a better way to put it, I can put some bump stops in there to where, you know, we have a lot of ways that we can look in and see what their progress is and make them take accountability for what their progress is too. That gradebook thing on Blackboard in your case was stellar. Nobody had brought that up, and that's definitely going to get implemented. And then of course some of the others as well. That insight report, yeah, that'll definitely be a go-to as well.
Well, good. And again, feel free to reach out if you have questions.
Oh, definitely will do. Especially I know now that you're an ex-phys person. I mean, we know all the hardships and trials and tribulations we've all been through. So we're a small community and we're always tight. So yeah, that's good to know too.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I will definitely keep you informed, heck, just in case you ever have something along these lines that you have to go through yourself.
Oh. I'm probably going to check in with you just to find out, like, so how did it go?
That's what Amy Ensign was saying, the same thing. She's like, yeah, I just want to see how this thing turns out. So, yeah, I agree. I want to keep everybody in the loop. And I know the MH people want to know how it turns out, too.
Oh, I bet.
All right, Rhonna. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Have a great one.
All right, thanks. You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.